kindergarten. Today we are going to be reading Lady and the Tramp from Disney, okay? And we're going to be using our high and low voices because in your packet it tells you to practice reading a story using high and low voices. So you're going to notice a few different characters in this story. We have some humans. We have Jim and we have Darling. Jim is the boy, so his voice is going to be a little bit lower. Go ahead and say hello with a low voice. It's going to sound like this. Hello. Go ahead. Now with Darling's voice, she's a girl, you're going to say hello. Go ahead. Darling is a girl, so she might have a higher voice, right? Let's go ahead and read the story. I'm going to read it like this, only because I can't see the words with it reading like this. And then I'm going to show you the pictures so that you can know what's going on in the story. And I'm going to use my high and low voices. It was Christmas Eve. At the home of Jim Deer and Darling, many bright wrapped presents sat under the tree. But one was particularly cheery. Jim Deer picked it out first and handed it to his bride, saying, "It's for you, darling." Is that a high or a low voice? Great job, it's a low voice. And as Darling lifted the lid off the box, out jumped a cuddly Cocker Spaniel puppy. "Oh, how sweet!" cried Darling. "What a perfectly beautiful little lady." Is that a high or a low voice? That's right, it's a high voice. And so Lady became the puppy's name. When Lady was 6 months old, she received her very own collar with a very special tag engraved with her name. Now she knew she really belonged. Proudly, Lady showed it off to her neighbors, a Scottish terrier named Jock and a bloodhound named Trusty. "Why, Miss Lady," claimed Trusty, "you have a collar." Is that a low or a high voice? That's right, it's a low voice. "I," Jack nodded, "she is a fully grown lady." Now we're going to show the pictures. One day, Lady sadly said that Jim Deer had been rushing past her without patting her head. Darling hadn't taken her for a walk in ages, and they had been talking about a special event. Jock and Trusty smiled. Can you guys smile for me? Lady's humans were having a baby. A carefree mutt named Tramp, who lived on the streets, was wandering by overhead. "Just a cute little bundle of trouble," Tramp quipped as he swaggered over. "Remember those nice juicy cuts of beef? Forget 'em! And that nice warm bed by the fire? A leaky doghouse." Was that a high or a low voice? That's right, it was a low voice. "Do not listen, lassie," said Jock. Okay, said Tramp. "But remember, Pigeon, when a baby moves in, the dog moves out." Here's the pictures. One day soon after, the baby arrived. And when Lady got a glimpse of him, she had to admit this thing called a baby was very cute. There was no sense in listening to that awful Tramp. For a while, things were wonderful, but one day Aunt Sarah came to stay at the house while Jim Deer and Darling went on a trip. Aunt Sarah kept Lady away from the baby, and she had 2 naughty Siamese cats. Boys and girls, do cats and dogs usually get along? No. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they are enemies, right? When the cats pulled the fishbowl off the table, Aunt Sarah blamed Lady, and off they marched to the pet store to fit Lady with a muzzle. Lady wasn't sure what a muzzle was, but when the clerk strapped one on her, she suddenly understood. It was a terrible thing. Lady twisted and turned, struggling wildly, and then got loose and ran down the street. Suddenly, a pack of dogs began chasing Lady. Tramp happened to be passing by and saw that Lady was in trouble. He bared his teeth and growled, chasing the dogs away. "You poor kid," Tramp said, looking at Lady's muzzles. "We've got to get this off, and I know the very place. Come on." Was that a higher or a low voice, boys and girls? That's right, that was a low voice. Tramp took Lady to the zoo to see a beaver whose sharp teeth easily bit through the muzzle strap. "It's off!" cried Lady happily. Is that a high or a low voice? That's right, it's a high voice because Lady seems to be a girl, right? "It's supper time," Tramp announced as he and Lady trotted away from the zoo. "You've been footloose and collar-free. Well, you take nothing from the best." Then Tramp headed for Tony's, the very place for a special occasion. Let's see what happens. Tony was delighted to see Tramp and his new lady friend. "Tonight, they got the best in the house. Spaghetti especial, heavy on the meatball." Tony serenaded the happy couple. The two dogs shared a delicious spaghetti dinner by candlelight. As they ate, Tramp nibbled one end of the noodle and Lady nibbled the other end of the same noodle. They nibbled and nibbled that noodle until... Boys and girls, if they're nibbling the same noodle, do you think they might kiss? Let's see. They kissed! Ew! Kissing is gross, right? Nose to nose, staring deeply into each other's eyes, Lady and Tramp fell head over paws in love. After the romantic dinner, the two dogs walked to the top of a hill. Above them, they saw the twinkling stars in the sky, and all this beauty, Lady forgot about Aunt Sarah and her cats. She fell happily in love. Can you guys show me a heart with your hands? Because they fell happily in love. That's right. The next morning, however, Lady realized she should be home, and Tramp agreed to take her back. First, Tramp decided to sneak into a hen house and chase chickens. Lady hated every minute of it, especially when the farmer began to chase them. Lady was caught and taken to the pound. Boys and girls, it's never good when a dog or a cat gets taken to the pound, right? Lady was ashamed and afraid. The other dogs told her she'd be released soon, for she had a collar. Soon enough, a guard came to Lady. "You're too nice a girl to be in this place," he said, handing Lady to Aunt Sarah. Boys and girls, was that a high voice or a low voice? That's right, it was a low voice. All right, let's see what happens next. Lady was happy to be home again, but it didn't last long. Aunt Sarah chained her to her doghouse. Lady was so lost in unhappy thoughts that she didn't see a huge rat climb into her backyard. But when it ran in front of her, she took off after him, barking and growling, only to be stopped short by her chain. She watched the rat climb up the side of the house and through the baby's window. Lady barked with her whole heart. Because guess what, boys and girls? She didn't want the rat to get to the baby because she really much cared about the baby. Luckily, Tramp heard Lady barking. He raced into the yard and over to Lady. "What's wrong, Pidge?" he asked. "A rat!" cried Lady. "Upstairs, in the baby's room!" Tramp raced up to the back porch stairs and into the baby's room and attacked the rat. He knew it was up to him to protect the baby. So at first, Lady was protecting the baby, and because Tramp loves Lady so much, he's willing to protect the baby too. Let's see what happens next. Lady broke loose and ran into the baby's room too, in time to see the rat escape from Tramp and climb onto the baby's crib. But Tramp flew at the rat, saving the baby from harm. However, Aunt Sarah did not see the dead rat. She only saw two dogs and an overturned crib. You vicious brutes!" she screamed at Lady and Tramp. "Get back! Get back!" Was that a high voice or a low voice, boys and girls? That's right, it was a high voice from Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah called the dog catcher to take Tramp away from attacking the baby. All right, let's see what happens next. Just then, Jim Deer and Darling came home, and Lady led them up to the baby's room to show them the dead rat. All at once, everyone understood. Tramp hadn't been trying to hurt the baby. He had saved the baby. Was there time to stop the dog catcher's wagon before Tramp ended up at the pound? Outside, Trusty and Jock heard about Tramp saving the baby and decided to go after the dog catcher's wagon. "We'll track him down," yelled Trusty as they ran. "And then," asked Jock, "we'll hold him down, hold him at bay." The brave Trusty followed Tramp's scent and chased down the wagon, but his barking scared the dog catcher's horses. They reared up and tipped the wagon over, pinning Trusty under a wheel. Jock began to howl. Boys and girls, can you give me your best howl? Hoo, hoo. Would he ever talk with old Trusty again? Let's see if he ever talks with old Trusty again. As it turned out, Jock had nothing to worry about. In fact, good old Trusty hobbled out to go visiting with Jock the very next Christmas. And the first place they visited was the home of their dear friends, Lady and Tramp. That's right, Tramp had finally traded in his wandering ways for a collar and a home with his lady. And now they had puppies, Scooter, Fluffy, Ruffy, and Little Scamp, and who looked just like his dad. What a happy home and family. That is the end of the book. So we learned about high and low voices, okay? And we learned how sometimes boys sound lower with their voices and girls, well, girl dogs, right, sound higher with their voices. Thank you so much for tuning in with Miss Moody and reading this book, and I'll see you next time, kindergarten.